Good morning, and welcome to a special 10-minute edition of Rise and Shine Sundays. I am your host, Jamie Rich, and this morning we've been experimenting. One of the things that we do here on Rise and Shine Sundays is we build our whole conversation around an inquiry. And for the better part of this morning, our inquiry has been, can we get the audio to work correctly in the live stream? But apparently we have resolved that. And so thanks to our wonderful producer, the woman who makes everything happen on the Breakthrough Shadow Network, Jessica Dugas, we are now back and hopefully broadcasting live and in color and in full stereo sound. So I find this whole experience inspiring. And so our conversation topic for this week in our special 10-minute version of this is, are you really choosing what inspires you? And with one of the reasons why I wanted to make this a topic of discussion is that we so often forget that even though when we talk about inspiration and we're talking about things that really make us feel good, in truth, we're inspiring, breathing in all sorts of things that are in our environment. And this Sunday, I really wanted us to explore what it means to reclaim our choice over everything that we're taking in today, not from a place of fear, but from a space of awareness. And because I have such loyal, wonderful people joining us here, I can begin the conversation with good morning to you all. And it's been an inspiration in this short period of time to work with you on this. But what's emerging in our time together about this whole idea of being conscious about what you breathe in, especially today when there are so many things running 24 hours a day that are optimized just to seep into our awareness. Sang, is there anything that springs to mind as for
I
you?
mean, yeah, I think being able to take in the tiny things, what are the small things that really want you, that inspire you, that bring you joy, that just, it could be writing with your favorite pen. I was literally talking last week about how I have this special pen that I got at a car dealership of no less. Right. And I even went back to the car dealership to get more of the pens because I like how it writes. And then come to find out that car dealerships apparently buy really good pens because you have to sign a lot of papers when you go.
That's right.
And I was like, but I'm inspired by the pen to write more here. It's I think just finding like the small things that one make you excited. But I love how that pen writes, and so I'm inspired to write more simply because of that cable Dahmer pen.
Okay. And that was done without a plug, by the way, for that dealership here in the Kansas City area. But I also want to make sure that we are fully aware. We tend to name inspiration as all of the positive things that come into our realm, like wonderful pens from a car dealership, like a conversation that Ray and I were having with this wonderful woman that we interviewed this week. But Ray, there's another side of that. There's the recognition that even without choosing, even without our awareness of it, we're breathing in all sorts of stuff these days.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting is what's also started to happen for me is that in various conversations I'm having, people are actually stopping to actually make the group aware of what's being shared or inspired, being taken in. And Sang will love this. They actually asked for a pause, and they also asked I want to recognize
Mhm.
what was just coming in. So it allows for all of us as a group to start to think differently and to take that time. So, yeah, I think it's really important what Sang has said as well is this. It's the small things that trigger sometimes the bigger changes or the bigger levels of awareness.
Well, again, this is the idea that we think that inspiration is selective, that impact on our nervous system is only valid when we're hearing things that are wonderfully resonant with us. But oftentimes, those things that we're breathing in really, really weigh us down. And I don't want to. I really don't want to step away from the problem right now because I want to make sure that we really give it its just due, because your nervous system doesn't get to ask permission, right? It is going to hear, it's going to take in, it's going to respond to um, situations that you place yourself in. And also, just it's doom scrolling. It's all of that is inspiration. It's just that we tend to just think of it only as the positive stuff, right? I mean, have you ever spent a day without being on your phone? What was that like saying?
You know, it actually disturbed other people more,
Did it?
right? Like, I actually went here was even more story. I went out of town, my phone fell into the ocean, right? And I was like, "Huh." But everybody around me was like, "Are you gonna get a new phone? Are you gonna take it to the store? You gotta get a new phone." I was like, "Dude, I'm fine. Like, I will just email whoever I need to email from my computer." But like, everyone else was so concerned that I didn't have my phone, but I was fine. And I've even left my phone at home and I'm like, I go, "Oh man, I forgot my phone." They're like, "You wanna go back and get it?" I was like, "I'm good. It's fine." Like, I don't need that attachment. And, and I get it, it's not like I'm carrying around my house phone with me, right? But
I'm with you.
I just being disconnected and there's that level of panic, I'm sure. And as a matter of fact, I even asked my son the other day if he could remember if he knew people's phone numbers by heart if he needed to do that. Right?
Right.
So like, but anyway, but being without my phone is great. Like
Well,
it's
and the reason why I use the phone as an example is that I don't think people are aware of the magnitude of what they scroll through. If you're just joining us this Sunday on Rise and Shine Sundays, we're talking about, are you really choosing what inspires you? And with us in the roundtable, we're discussing this topic. You're also welcomed if you'd like to join us in our studio for this very, very abbreviated version of our broadcast. You can join us in studio at rsslive.org, and we will welcome you into the conversation. We are seeing some of your comments on YouTube as well. But I want to go back to that. It isn't the specific of the phone, but it's the idea of how much, the time that you spend on the phone actually impacts your consciousness, right? All that stuff that you're going through. And the reason why I was thinking, if you take people's phones away from them, their nervous system still isn't attuned anymore to what's going on around them. Do you notice that sometimes, Ray?
Yeah, I'm not a big phone. People are much like what Sang was sharing. Is I don't actually carry the phone with me everywhere. I'll put it down somewhere so that I am able to be in a real live environment. And they said, "Well, why didn't you get my text?" And I said, "Well, did I need to get it right away?" So when I want to check, so I'm selectively sort of looking at what environments I want to be um, influenced by.
Gotcha, gotcha. And I think that that's that selectivity that we're really talking about. I have had to be really one thing that I can say. I know that Jessica is listening to this, but I sometimes think that one of the things that we have to be responsible for is programming our day, almost thinking of our life as a network, right? What is it that I want to breathe in today? There was a very famous quote. I think Tony Robbins was credited with it. But if you're not programming your mind, somebody else is. And where I want to take this at this particular point is recognizing that in your day, if you're not programming your day, if you're not, the the algorithm's presence in our lives cannot be understated, and especially with a lot of people using AI and doing all sorts of things where they're spending their time in the aura, if I can use a woo-woo word, of things that they're not necessarily consciously choosing. There's a big impact, right, in terms of what's coming at us that we're not consciously choosing. I mean, I see you nodding, saying, is there something that in response to that?
No, I think no, I mean, they're not really. It literally is like what we choose to like. So what are you watching when you first get up? Do you turn the news on first? Are you listening to something? What are you listening to music? How much are you actually reading every day? Like it really comes down to the little intricacies of the day because I think a lot of times we feel that. I personally try not to. I know a lot of people do fill the void, and I always invite people to like move their social media things and around on their phone and see how many times they automatically go to a certain tab or a certain app out of habit and not saying, let me go get on LinkedIn versus I just swipe and go, all of a sudden, next thing you know, I'm scrolling Facebook for 5 minutes,
Yeah. I,
right?
I watched a video this past week that was really talking about how that routine you set up your morning really impacts your nervous system. Because some people go right to their phone, right? And they're inspiring. In other words, we're wanting to go back to the pureness of that word, is it's everything that you breathe in, not just the positive stuff. But if you can bring an awareness to what you choose to bring in, you you'll really be helping out your nervous system in the long run, right? um, and again, that's the whole idea of not just recognizing it's not just the attitude that you set, but it's also recognizing that the spaces that you choose to enter online, especially because so much is coming at you without your permission. Fair enough, Ray?
Oh yeah, like in some ways, when you said what you just said, shared again, saying was the interesting aspect of we go to default. I go look at my phone first instead of saying, well, what other choices or what am I consciously choosing? When you go into behavioral default, it's basically the phone is going to dominate and control your behavioral system for that choice because you immediately went to it instead of consciously saying maybe I should be doing something else, maybe I shouldn't start with LinkedIn, start with something else. And the minute you change the order, apparently the brain starts to react because you break out a default.
Yeah. Like I said this morning, we're doing a special abbreviated version of Rise and Shine Sundays. And this particular topic that we were talking about this weekend is about what you choose to breathe in, what you choose to let inspire you. So we're going to have to go into our invitation for people to consider, because one of the things that I want to help people actually consider doing is I'd like to inspire you to consider joining us next Sunday here in our studio with us as we have a conversation. I can't wait to tell you what the topic is going to be next week, because one of the things that we do here is we speak to what's emerging in the moment around a topic. But I'd like for you to kind of put your on your calendar to join us and to actually come in and be inspirational to us by joining us at RSS Live. We'd love to have you in the room with us as we're working through this. Was there anything that we can abbreviately say about this particular topic for the good of the hour?
Me personally, I'm going to remind people that most adults spend 2.5 hours a day, I'm sorry, on social media, scrolling, doing things. That's 17 and a half hours a week, right? Our children are probably on it way more. And so thinking about what their minds are what they're consuming in their minds, what you're consuming in your minds. And my invitation is, what could you possibly do if you were given 17 extra hours in the week?
Absolutely. And what could you do if you took those 17 hours and actually consciously programmed them for yourself? Ray,
Mhm.
something to add to
I,
that?
yeah, I just love what you just shared, saying is and Jamie, the what somebody mentioned to me quite a while ago is that we spread ourselves very, very thin. So, what if we took those 17 hours and added depth to
Mhm.
particular areas where you spend out of those 17 hours? Why don't we spend an hour thinking or reading or doing something where we're actually in the presence, in present for that particular situation? So, depth matters.
Depth matters, resilience matters, and the people in this room matter very much to me. So we thank you for joining us on this very abbreviated version of Rise and Shine Sundays, where we wake up to what's emerging, we figure out what's happening, and we try to consciously choose, just like you, how we can best inspire ourselves and others. So we'll look forward to seeing you back here next week. Coming up at the top of the hour here on the Breakthrough Show Network is Spirit Sundays. So thank you for your time. We'll look forward to seeing you back here next week at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. And you can Eastern, and you can always get us at rsslive.org. We'll see you next week.